Hello? Hello? There we go, I can hear you. Yeah, so where are you calling from today?
Texas.
From Fullerton.
Central Coast.
I am calling from Scotland.
Southern California, a little town called Hemet.
Vancouver, BC.
And wherever you're tuning in, welcome. Nice to meet you. My name is Spencer. I'm an aspiring adult in the making from California, and I love profound conversations and even better, meaningful relationships. Everyone grows up and they have their own narrative. They have life lessons that they've learned, they've had experiences from growing up, and they have passions that they're pursuing. Milking Ardor is a space where people can talk about all these things freely. I have a long way from making Milking Ardor my dream podcast. In fact, I'm still learning how to make a podcast, and right after I record this snippet right here, I have to figure out how the hell am I supposed to upload this onto the internet. Yeah, so far in the start, it's been pretty good. I've had some great conversations. It shows authenticity, and that's what Milking Ardor is all about, the authenticity. In fact, there may be some foul language, and you might be with some people listening to this, and they might not be a big fan of the foul language, but I must say, it's not about the language being used, but rather the stories that are being told. In this episode, you'll be hearing from Alec, a 20-year-old who has big dreams of becoming a detective and uses his art to express positivity to others. Chad, who has wisdom of breaking stereotypes. And finally, Brandon, who gives us insight on what it means to seek truth. So I had a really good chat with Alec. We talked about his aspirations, his passions, and just hobbies. Let's tune in to what that conversation was like.
I'm trying to be a cop.
You're trying to be a cop.
Yeah. And in the United States, you have to be 21 to be a cop. And I'm currently 20 right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be turning, 21 by the end of the year in December. And, it's pretty good. So I have a huge chunk of time before I can join the academy. And they pay you a lot of money for having more languages and stuff like that. So I've been learning German, and I've been learning some Korean.
Wow.
So it's been going pretty well. On top of that, I know English and Spanish. So it's already 3% of a pay increase.
What's kind of the inspiration of wanting to be a cop? I feel like that's kind of dangerous. Aren't you kind of scared that you might get killed in line of duty?
Well, originally I wanted to be a Marine. That was my calling in the very beginning. But the thing is, I have asthma. And you can be the biggest, toughest Marine ever, but if your own body can kind of kill you, you're kind of useless on a in there. But so I wasn't able to get into that. Kind of made me a little bit sad, but I was thinking, what's the second best thing? And honestly, for a long time, I didn't really think of much because I was like, nah, I don't want to do anything then. I'll just, see whatever comes up and, go with the flow and whatever. But I started thinking about things and I was like, you know what? I got to have an idea. I got to have a plan. So I was thinking about becoming a security guard. And, I worked my way into it. I did all my training and stuff online, and I got my PSO, which is the private security officer certification. And, I just started working like at, Target and stuff like that as one of those guys just kind of waiting at the door, and just making sure, people aren't stealing and stuff like that. But then I was thinking, after one day of working there, I was like, nah, this really isn't for me because, oh my goodness, it's so terrible. Like, I don't know if you realize it, but you've been to Walmart, pretty sure. And, those people kind of just waiting at the door,
Oh, absolutely.
checking. Yeah. And I don't know, man, it's so like soul sucking and it's just not good because, you're like nice to people and stuff. And some people might be okay with that, but I personally am not. I'm like, oh, if I say hello, just, say hello. But like some people just look at you like you're a devil. So it's pretty bad. And I ended up quitting. And then I was thinking, you know, what's the best thing for me to go into where one, I can talk to people, and two, kind of get respect in a way. And I was thinking, you know what, a cop. That's like the perfect plan. And on top of that, I really like to help people when it comes to you know, people around me.
It definitely sounds like it.
Yeah. And yeah, so I really want to go into like, you know, because I mean, right now a cop is a stepping stone for me. I want to end up being a detective. And once you are a detective, like the FBI, you know, federal wise, they kind of like station you wherever you are needed. So for right now, I'm just gonna want to be a state cop. But for the most part, that's what I was kind of drawn to, because mainly my end goal is to become, you know, into like, you know, kind of child protective services in a way and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Because
it's amazing.
yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate that. I remember one time, one of my quote unquote strong friends, he went up against a teacher, and it was a female, and she knew exactly how to like hold the hand so that she can pretty much win. And it was crazy because everyone was like, "Oh, you know, the teacher's gonna be like, she's gonna get destroyed by this guy," you know. And then she ended up destroying him.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, it was the funniest thing in the world, and yeah, we're all flabbergasted there.
And I love that you have that memory and you kind of think about that, or it means something to you that you haven't forgotten it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I actually tend to write a lot of scripts because I have a ton of hobbies, and I tend to just write down a lot of stories that have happened in my past, and mainly for the fact that I like to animate. Like, have you seen those like 2D
I
animations
was
on
going to ask
YouTube?
about that.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I'm asking, could you take me back to July 6th, 2016, where you posted that first video on your YouTube, how to deal with nightmares? That I loved watching
Oh
that.
man. Okay.
It kind of gave me like a swoozy vibe, or just kind of like Domix, where it's like the voiceover type style.
Oh yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, yeah. So what you have to realize is that at that point, I was doing everything on my phone. Like I think I had a iPhone 5, maybe. I'm not too sure, but it was like a really crappy phone. But I would I would see a lot of like YouTube videos. Do you know the YouTuber Grade A Under A?
I do not know.
No, well, he's pretty much he does animations, kinda, but they're more like slideshows. So
Okay.
he'll have like a little character and like, you know, draw him in one area or with a stick figure body, and he'll draw him as one little like pose, and then the very next picture would be a different pose, but in the same area, you know. So he'll still be talking, but that's pretty much how he does it. And I thought, wow, this guy's really popular. So I think I can get into it. And I tried my hand on it. So I pretty much ended up, you know, just downloading a couple apps that I thought, you know, could be useful. And it kind of worked out for me. I had just a little like tiny little head that you can see,
Yeah.
and I would copy paste that all over the place and just put a little smiley face on him or a little frowny face or whatever, you know, was the topic. But to be honest, I didn't really have an idea of like the story and stuff like that, you know.
Absolutely. I love how you made the videos. I feel like everyone should be making videos of when they're younger. It's in a way it's evidence of what you're like when you're younger. And I think 20 years or in 10 years when you're a cop or you're a marine, you're a detective, I think it's going to be so funny to just watch these videos
Oh
again and
yeah.
totally see the tremendous growth you've made over the past decade.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, for the most part, I've been like considering bringing them back, like with a whole new script and everything, like, you know, kind of laid out. The only thing is that like there's two types of animations I have on there.
Yeah.
One, I have the quote unquote more 2D ish animation, and the other ones are those the I guess copy paste animations. And definitely the copy paste ones were more fun because I can like just add in a ton of like little things, little subtle things and stuff like that. But the 2D animations are really, really fun to make, mainly for the part of like just having a little character and you know, kind of being more fluid with that and being able to make him do whatever I want
Yeah.
instead of just being restricted to whatever photos I have. But it's definitely time consuming. I remember on those old ones I would work on them for like 5 to 6 hours, and they're like not even like 2 minutes long, most of them, and for these new animations, I think I would work on them for like, I think a whole week, and it'd be like,
Wow.
5-6 hours a day. But they're like, honestly, they're like less than 5 minutes each. And it was really, really extensive, like amount of time that I would put into them. But eventually, it was quite demanding of me. So I kind of like dropped it for a bit.
I like
But
how
I'm definitely thinking of bringing them back. My bad.
No, go ahead. I like how on your Instagram, you have all sorts of different type of art, but your last 3 posts specifically, is kind of going back to the comic slides. They all kind of had positive messages to that.
Oh yeah, definitely. For my Instagram, I try to keep it like an aesthetic.
The noir aesthetic,
So
I love that so
yeah.
much.
Thank you.
Reminds
brother.
me of the old movies.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. You can see my style really developed, to be honest. Those first 2 photos that I have of drawings are like really, really like they don't have a structure to them like my profile picture has right now. It's mainly just kind of like I was getting a feel for like my drawing stuff again, because I for the comics, yeah, those are really like kind of, I don't know, I really like to make them. A lot of people do tell me like, oh, it's really sad, it made me cry and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry that you can relate to this, but I'm kind of happy that my stuff are relatable. And but yeah, for the most part, it's for the people. I like it when my friends tell me, oh, you know what, this is really good, I like this one, I'm gonna save that one, I'm gonna send it to my friend. Or whenever people tell me, I'm gonna put this as my background, and I just get really happy. That's what life is, man.
Well, thank you so much, Alec. I think we could call it time now.
Yeah, definitely, man.
All right, well, good luck with your COD scrimmage. I hope you beat the other team during that rematch.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, well,
have yourself a really good day.
Thank you. You too, Alec. Well, congratulations, you made it through a third of the first episode of Milking Ardor. I would like to take this time to acknowledge our sponsorships. Yeah, we don't have any. But up next we have Chad, where we're talking about breaking stereotypes. Let's see what he has to say about that. Well, let's start with your name and where you're from. Or where you're calling from, rather.
Well, my name's Chad. I live in a little hick town called Hickory Grove, South Carolina. It's about 45 minutes to an hour outside of Charlotte. Lived in and out of Charlotte pretty much my whole life. I lived in Nashville for a few years. Haven't been too far north or too far west.
So Chad, tell me, so you're all about breaking stereotypes. I love breaking stereotypes too. And you talked a little bit about a new generation coming. What's that about?
Growing up, I always thought maybe my generation might be, actually see the end of racism. And to a sense, I think it's starting to finally turn. And it's just a new way of thinking. Like, you got a lot of these older folks out here that, don't trust the government. Some trust too much, this, that, and the other. And even with this pandemic, I think the one good thing to come out of it is healthcare got changed overnight. And I'm hoping that'll stick. And I'm hoping in people's minds, they'll be like, oh, well, that could happen. And, the government could provide that for everybody. because it's just not right that sick people, get treated differently than people with insurance or without insurance. And I've been in my wife's in healthcare, and she tells me stories of, people come in with good insurance, get one treatment. People come in with Medicare, get another treatment. And I mean, that's just not right.
Yeah. So this is important to you, and you're talking with a friend about breaking stereotypes.
Right.
Why is this important to you?
Well, like I said, I'm from South Carolina, and I probably remember a few years ago, well, I don't even want to say his name, but the dude that shot up the church down in Charleston.
Mm.
And, a bunch of people came to the Capitol, tore the Confederate flag down. It was like overnight, we just became this totally racist state. And
Yeah, just things went to shit.
yeah. And, I'm sitting here and I'm watching it happen. I live 3 hours from Charleston, been there many times. And I'm like, well, this ain't cool. I mean, this ain't right. You got one idiot that does all this, and then, the next day your whole state's all over the news as, a bunch of inbred, backward people. And I mean, there's some people like that, but they're everywhere. But I would like to tell everybody, no, we're not like that. You want to come to the South? Don't be scared. Come on. Now, just like anywhere else, there's places you don't want to go, and you can pretty much look them up and figure it out. But
yeah, I think it's so bizarre how things could go to shit and how riots could start so fast, and even just Medicare, how things could change in just one night.
yeah, that's it's like I said, I was sitting here watching it, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Mm.
And it's always bothered me that once something happens like that in the South, it's just plastered all over the news.
Oh yeah.
And not and even would the biggest topic with me and my buddy right now is what happened down in where is it, outside of Atlanta, where the two guys killed the black dude, and that happened in February, and it's just now coming out. And basically they just lynched that dude. But again, it's all here we are, the racist South again. And that stuff happens everywhere. It's not just here, but once it happens here, it's just another story from the backwoods inbred hillbillies. And that's just not how it is.
Yeah. So clearly people make jokes about practically everything, whether it's a mistake their friends did, or even to more serious topics, suicide, school shootings, rape, genocide. Why do you think that is?
Just a way to deal with it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that's a way to just deal with it, and just kind of because they can. And how do you think comedy affects stereotypes?
I think it just kind of magnifies the stupidity of them. You know what I'm saying? Just, we're going to take this one thing and we're just going to magnify it because we all know it ain't true, but we're going to laugh at it. And one of my favorite comedians by far is probably Dave Chappelle. And I mean, that guy's a genius. And there's a lot of truth to what he says, but comedy also comes from a lot of real life experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I try not to take stuff too seriously, like online, and people, like, I'm on TikTok a lot, and from the South, you're gonna get comments from everybody, backwoods hillbilly. You kind of got to laugh it off, because I'm like, you're the one calling me names, but I ain't said nothing to you.
Yeah. I think a part of it too is it's constitutional, where you have the right to freedom of speech, but people don't realize that there are consequences. So they say whatever the hell they want at whatever age, and then years later it comes back and bites them in the ass.
Yeah.
Do you believe in second chances?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, well, second chances with kind of depending on what you did. I mean, if you raped and killed somebody when you were 20, nah,
Yeah.
that was a bad choice. Sorry about that, but you pretty much done yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
Saying something stupid when you're young and dumb. I mean, I'm 45 and I still consider myself young and dumb, but through experience, you just learn, what a correct interaction is and what's not. And if you ain't got a sense of value like that, then yeah, it's gonna come back and get you pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm 45 and I don't think nowhere near the same way I thought when I was 25. I'm still the same person, but the way I think and the way I do things is a lot differently.
Yeah, yeah. So then what are the steps to breaking stereotypes?
Communication. Exactly what we're doing right here. Don't assume. Talk, get to know, just get to know somebody. If there's that one person that you work with or go to school with or whatever it may be, or on public transportation you see every day but you never talk to, just say hi. I mean, I know I've heard that's a foreign concept everywhere outside of the South, but because we speak to everybody, but I've heard, outside of the South, I've see things. Yeah, down south, they come up and talk to you, ask you how you doing. It's weird, but that's also how you get to know people.
Yeah, I think that's amazing that in the South that you have that, but kind of more in the North area, California area, it's kind of scary sometimes to say hi to strangers. People are afraid that just propaganda is going to be claimed and that someone's going to say like, oh, they were sexually assaulting me or they were assaulting me. So how do you think we can change that?
I've never even thought about that. I mean, that way of thinking is just kind of foreign to me.
Yeah.
Somebody says hi to me, oh shit, what am I supposed to say? Or if I say hi to this woman, is she gonna think, I'm after something or having bad intentions? I've never really. I mean, me, myself, and most every guy I know, like when it comes to women, we go out of our way to make them feel safe. I mean, if I'm walking down the road at night, say if I was walking in the city at night and there was a girl coming at me, we'd either cross the road or, we do everything we can to make sure they feel safe.
Yeah.
And that's just courtesy and how we were raised. But
yeah, I'm glad you did say communication because I think that is a big aspect of why misconceptions and just profiling occurs because there's just not enough information known to a person.
Well, that's the other thing that's not real great about technology is you get a lot of the wrong people that has the loudest voice, and that perpetuates a lot of the stereotypes. So that doesn't help. You got a guy over here, hollering, white power, but the guy over here is going, no, we ain't about that. But for some reason, the only person the people see is the one screaming white power and waving the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
I guess because that's just more controversial, and people who are looking for that, that's what you're going to see. I mean, if you're looking for a problem, you're going to find one. Always.
Absolutely. So, this is kind of my last question. What is one thing that you think everyone should kind of know? Or if you have one thing to tell the world, what would it be?
Just love, man. See, at the end of the day, did you become a better person? Or did you help somebody become a better person?
Yeah, that self-reflection at the end of the day, I think, could really help people.
For 5 minutes out of every day, just try to be somebody better. Be a little bit better than you were yesterday. That's something I didn't realize till a few years ago. I wish somebody would have told me that years and years ago.
But let's start off with what's your name and where are you calling from today?
Well, yeah, my name's Brandon. I'm calling from Vancouver, BC. I'm living down here now. I've traveled fairly extensively. I lived up in the Arctic for about 7 years, down in the States for a little bit. So, yeah, I've been all around.
And what would you call yourself? Like a theorist, an oracle, a foreseer?
Probably something like a truth seeker or something along those lines. I feel like I'm just tired of bullshit, and I think that a lot of people probably feel the same way, whether or not they even would think of themselves in the same way that I do. Like if you're familiar with Jimmy Dore, I don't think he would consider himself a conspiracy theorist, but he spends all day taking apart the news. So I guess there's kind of a spectrum to it all.
Now, why do you think people believe in conspiracy theories? Like, why they come to conclusions on their own and really look at what's being told to us through media and say, like, yeah, I'm not sure if that's the full truth.
I think for every single person, it's different, right? Like I'm in my mid 30s, so for me, it was the biggest one was September 11th, 2001, and then looking at the way that the mainstream story, right? Like if you look on Wikipedia and try and decipher what happened that day, and then you look at the actual facts of that day, they're nothing alike, right? And then once you start to dig and dig and dig, it gets sillier and sillier and sillier for the main story. Like they're talking about 2 planes taking out 3.5 skyscrapers. Like people have no idea about Building 7 for the most part. They came down on its own, and even fewer people know about Building 6 that looks like it was scooped out with an ice cream scoop. And it's just all stuff that you can find it really easy if you go on DuckDuckGo or any search engine that isn't as kind of censored as Google is. But I mean, for people that are in my dad's generation, it was probably JFK. And, I mean, going back hundreds of years, it was probably Santa Claus for some people, right? you turn into being a teenager, and then all of a sudden you realize that your parents were lying to you, and everything's flipped on its head. So I think really the minute you kind of sense a little bit of untruth, and then you start digging, and you see kind of how thin the veneer of bullshit is that's being painted by the media, it comes down pretty quick.
Let's talk about your uprising, becoming a truth seeker. So you mentioned that you're in your 30s. How did you get to where you are? And you've said you've traveled kind of essentially around the world.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I guess I came at it a little bit different than a lot of people would have. I was dealing with, I don't know, everybody says they have depression and anxiety and all that kind of stuff now, and I'm not too big into the labels, but I felt like something was missing and something was wrong when I was in my late teens, and so I was just always searching, right? I was reading through Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, looking at all the different religions, and I ended up coming across an Eckhart Tolle book, it's called A New Earth, which kind of set me on a neat path. And then, long story short, I came across some stuff that mainstream science would say can't happen, right? I ended up reading a few books that are claimed to have been channeled by a personality that doesn't live here, essentially, right? Like a person channeled an entity or whatever you want to call it, and wrote some books, and they resonated with me in a way that I'd never had anything resonate with me before, and it really set me up on a path of questioning everything else from that perspective, because it's like, well, if I believe in reincarnation and multiple dimensions and simultaneous time and all of these things that we don't have time to get into now, it kind of leaves you open to questioning everything else.
Yeah.
And I think if you're open-minded when you look at things and you just let information wash over you, the truth really stands out. Like it's not hard to see what's bullshit and what's real if you let yourself be open to the opportunity.
Yeah. So touching on that a little bit, looking for truth. I used to think that Reddit is like for weirdos, and that a lot of conspiracy theorists use it to just kind of bullshit, start propaganda. How would you say that the conspiracy theorists on Reddit is like, or just in general, what the community is like?
The Reddit community specifically?
Let's just go vague, just broad.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting question, because I mean, a lot of people that are in my position will try and proselytize. Like they'll go out and try and tell people what they think they know about X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just know that you can't ever change somebody's mind if they haven't come to you for information, right? If somebody comes and asks you something, go ahead, tell them whatever you got on your mind. But if they're not open to it, you're never going to get anywhere. And so what I find really rampant in the conspiracy community is that people get frustrated that their loved ones aren't hearing or aren't seeing what they're trying to show them. And then maybe they'll put a little heat on it, right? They'll sauce it up a little bit, just trying to get the people involved. And then when they actually, when those people may look into it, now they're like, well, how come this isn't quite the way that you were saying it was? And it actually discredits what they're trying to show their friends and family, right? So there's a ton of hyperbole out there, if that's the nicest way to characterize it. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation. But I would honestly say that it's no worse than watching the news. And it's like you're still being fed the same level of bullshit. It's just coming from a different side. Sorry if I can't swear.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's tough to parse for sure. But I mean, you kind of get a sense for what's real and what's not. And I mean, I'm not sure how much you know about the whole conspiracy community, but like the reason most people in the conspiracy community believe these things is because it's happened in the past, right? I'm sure you're American by the sound of your voice. So there's the Freedom of Information Act, right, in the States. And that's opened up a world of information. Like there's MK Ultra, which went on for 20 something years in the States, which was basically the government's mind control program. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents you can look through yourself. And with that stuff, they were working on out-of-body experiences, astral projection, remote viewing, all these things that sound absolutely crazy until you realize that the materialist science worldview that is carried out kind of in the public isn't the same one that the governments hold. One quick thing to note is if you check out Alt Censored, it's a website that's dedicated to collecting banned YouTube videos. You'll find something really interesting on there, I think, if you start poking around, and it's not that they're all anti-Semitic, it's not that they're all conspiracy theories. The main theme that appears to run throughout is that they're all anti-war. So like for example, there's a banned video of Yoko Ono and John Lennon talking about how war hurts all kids. It's like, well, how does that violate any terms and conditions other than it doesn't prop up the military-industrial complex?
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to move on from this, but I think what you said was great and just great information to have for any general person. But this part is just kind of more specific towards you, and just kind of your beliefs.
Yeah.
Totally based on stereotypes of what people might typically ask a person.
For sure.
Because I did some research, but not everyone's going to do research on truth seekers such as yourself. So what are your thoughts about dinosaurs?
That's a funny one. I haven't spent enough time looking into it to actually say whether or not. I watched a few videos just for fun. There's a guy named Eric Dubé who has a long video that he claims dinosaurs didn't exist. And I will say that there's some interesting, compelling stuff. Like they're taking one or two bones and basically, imagining dinosaurs out of that and using that as though it's legitimate. And there was something to do with when paleontology was coming up as a science. There were just these dueling paleontologists that had just slews of horseshit discoveries. Like I can't remember the numbers. I'm pretty sure it was in the hundreds where they were just making stuff up. So I mean, I don't know. I can't say. I'm pretty agnostic on that whole dinosaurs didn't exist conspiracy, but it's a fun watch if anybody's interested.
Oh yeah, I love the dedication of how much work goes into a conspiracy theory or like a certain theory.
Oh, exactly.
And while I might not personally claim like, oh, I'm a conspiracy theorist, I definitely do appreciate the amount of work because it is time consuming.
Yeah.
So what about the Illuminati? Do you think that's real or?
I do actually. And what's funny is I've kind of come around on that in the last maybe 3 or 4 years when I started to really look into symbolism in the media and symbolism just throughout kind of Western culture. And what's interesting is Fritz Springmeier has a book called The Bloodlines of the Illuminati that actually tracks all the families. And it's if you Google it, the place that you find it is hosted on the CIA's website.
Wow.
Yeah,
exactly. No. That's a... Wow. Okay, so let's ask something that's not as, like, stupid. Thoughts about Hitler?
Well, no, sorry, hold on. Like, the Illuminati thing, I really don't think is stupid. Like, That's
I'm just saying,
there's a real weight to secret societies and their influence on the world. I mean, there was a speech by JFK a few weeks before he died talking about watching out for secret societies. Like it's a legitimate thing. But yeah, sorry. Continue.
No, yeah, I didn't mean to offend you, but I'm just saying, like, in general, people would say, like, oh, that's stupid.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not offended at all. I didn't want you to think that I thought it was silly. Like there's a lot more research that needs to kind of be done into that sort of stuff.
So, a lot of people might say, like, oh, conspiracy theories are just insane, or they are just outright just starting propaganda. What do you think is insane?
Watching the news. Yeah, it just, to me, I mean, I've always been a reader, right? Like I'm an only child.
Yeah.
I was an introvert growing up. I've just smashed books my whole life. And so it's like, I get a kick out of people telling me I'm uneducated on a subject when I've read 10 books or whatever on whatever that subject is, just because they don't like the thing that I'm saying.
Yeah.
So what's crazy to me is how close people's minds can be, especially when you see the level of propaganda being put out there at a regular basis. Like, I don't know if you saw this, it was last year. I can't remember the news network, it's slipping me, but basically it was when Trump was pulling out of Syria, and the news network took gun range footage from 2015 in Kentucky, scrubbed the people from the front of the gun range, darkened the scene, and then acted like it was because Trump had pulled out of Syria that all these civilians were dying.
That's so fucked.
It's honestly, it's insane, man. And like, it was last year, and it's like people that are into the conspiracy community, they see that stuff and they're like, yeah, of course, but everybody else that's out there never sees it, because all the other news stations will never report
They're totally clueless
They're all
about
doing the same shit.
Truth behind that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. So people are saying all these Syrian civilians are dying when they're just looking at, a grenade being lobbed in Kentucky in 2015.
Oh, shit. So then, in your opinion, what do you think? How do we protect ourselves from the media that is lying to us?
For me, and my biggest recommendation is, I'll just say it over and over, is turn off the TV. Like, stop watching the news. Mm-hmm. There's so much information out there. Like, James Corbett's incredible, Whitney Webb at The Last American Vagabond. There's every flavor for every style of presentation of information that you like, just with a lot more honesty and integrity that's out there. But for anybody who's hearing what I'm saying and thinking this guy's a lunatic, whatever, just like find any. Pardon me. Sorry, one sec. Find James Corbett's video. He does a 5-minute video on 9/11. It's called 9/11: A Conspiracy Theory, mm-hmm. And he lays out. He does it from the perspective of calling the whole thing ridiculous while laying out all of the little inconsistencies in the main story. And by the end of it, if you're not at least a little bit intrigued, then I've got nothing for you. But it's just there are a million threads to pull on. Just find one then that you're interested in and start pulling and see where it leads.
But yeah, I think a big part of this is you definitely have to be open. You can't really take news from just one place. You just have to be open and just really look around.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
All right, well, that was all of it for me. Thank you so much, Brandon, for
Spencer. Thanks so much for having me, man. That was a blast.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
For sure, man. Good luck on the pod.
Thank you. I'll let you know when this gets released and where I release it.
Sounds great, man.
All right. Have a good day.
Okay. All right. You too, bye.
Once again, thank you, Alec, Chad, and Brandon for being on the first episode of Milking Ardor. If you want to find more of these individuals, you can find Alec on Instagram at maybe.later.kid. Or you can check out those animations we were talking about on YouTube, K1, which is capital K, space, capital O, and E. Or, if you want to hear more about Brandon and what he's up to, he's actually coming out with a podcast coming out June 15th called the Paperboy Podcast. It's a news and research from the fringe that you won't hear anywhere else, covering everything from ancient civilization and alternate history to conspiracies to spirituality. It'll be a weekly paper, and it'll consist of weekly interviews. Of course, special thanks to Lukerembo and KaizanBlu for the amazing songs that they provided for me. And you can find them on YouTube, that's where I found them. Non-copyrighted music, which is always great. If you want to find me on Instagram, where I'll be doing announcements as well as just highlight clips of the show, you can find me at _SPENCE_R_, which is _Spence_R_. Or you can find me posting exclusive content on TikTok. You know, this is just highlight clips of conversations that I won't post weekly, but these are also amazing content and you can hear more stories this way. Of course, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of Milking Ardor. I can't wait for you guys to see what's next and for you guys to hear what's coming. And I feel like I'm talking too much, so I'll let you go. And once again, thanks for tuning in. See ya.